Today is February 19th. It's the 50th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. If you've been listening from the start, some of this may sound a little familiar, and if you haven't, it'll all be new to you. Either way, enjoy the show. Today is the Day of Remembrance, commemorating the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. It's on this day in 1942 that President Franklin Roosevelt signs Executive Order 9066, authorizing the Secretary of War to designate military zones to be controlled as he sees fit. This order that Roosevelt signs opens the door for the internment of Japanese Americans during the war. Despite reports that Japanese immigrants and naturalized and first-generation citizens pose no threat to the nation and are in fact deemed loyal to the United States, 120,000 Japanese Americans living on the Pacific coast will be interned in camps across the western United States over the next few years. Approximately 10,000 German Americans and 3,000 Italian Americans are interned as well. Though Franklin Roosevelt suspends the order in 1944, the camps are not closed for another 2 years. Most of the interned Japanese Americans return to ruined lives, destitute after being forced to give up homes, businesses, and jobs. George Takei of Star Trek fame, who was interned with his family in camps in Arkansas and later California, talks of this experience in his TED Talk entitled, "Why I Love a Country That Once Betrayed Me." Order 9066 is not officially rescinded until this day in 1976 by Proclamation 4417 signed by President Gerald Ford. Aaron Burr is the third Vice President of the United States, serving under President Thomas Jefferson. He's been a lawyer, New York State legislator, and Attorney General, and a U.S. Senator. While Vice President, Burr kills Alexander Hamilton in a duel. Soon after, Burr leaves politics and heads west. He leases a large plot of land from Spain in present-day Louisiana, and he gathers a group of folks together to settle the land with him. He sees war with Spain as inevitable, and his plan is to mount an uprising behind enemy lines once fighting commences and claim all of that land for himself. And if that doesn't work, he'll lend support to Mexico to help them overthrow Spain. Either way, he wants that land. Well, that war never happens, and word of Burr's plan gets back to Jefferson, who issues a warrant for Burr's arrest. The charge: treason. Aaron Burr is pursued through the South until he's arrested on this day in 1807 in a town called Wakefield in what is now present-day Alabama. He is held at Fort Stoddard, where he is wined and dined by the commandant and his wife. In August, Burr goes to trial, and Jefferson throws every resource he has into obtaining a conviction. But the evidence is flimsy, and Chief Justice Marshall is not swayed merely by Jefferson's desire for a guilty verdict. Aaron Burr is acquitted of the charge of treason. Later, he leaves America for Europe, until they kick him out and he returns to New York and works as an attorney until passing away in 1836 at the age of 80. The Battle of Midway in World War II is a turning point for the U.S. The American fleet drives towards Japan in the years that follow, taking the Solomon Islands, Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Peleliu, and many more islands and atolls across the Pacific. By February 1945, Allied forces are within striking distance of Okinawa and the Japanese mainland. There's only one obstacle in their way: a rocky outcrop due south of Tokyo that houses 2 airfields and an early warning radar station: Iwo Jima. The task of taking Iwo Jima is assigned to the Marines, and 3 divisions, a total of 70,000 men, make their way from Guam and Hawaii to a staging area on Saipan. On the 15th of February, the invasion force departs Saipan and is immediately spotted by Japanese patrols. Major General Harry Schmidt, commander of the Marine Southern Sector Invasion Force, requests 10 days of shelling to soften up Japanese defenses prior to the Marine assault. He is given 3 days, 2 of which see such foul weather that the bombardment is marginally effective. The Marines plan to take a 2-mile stretch of beach along the southeastern side of the island. The Japanese know they can't win the battle, so they leave the beaches relatively undefended and instead burrow into a network of tunnels 11 miles long and wait to ambush the Marines with the goal of inflicting as many casualties on the Americans as possible. At 8:59 a.m. on this day in 1945, D-Day, the first wave of Marines land and immediately get mired in the black volcanic ash that covers the steep beaches, the terraces reaching 15 feet high at some points, and the heavy surf and strong undertow prove a challenge for the Higgins boats ferrying the Marines into the island. Within a couple hours, 6,000 men have landed on the beach under intense Japanese artillery fire. They begin to move off the beach through minefields laid in the exitways. The 28th Marine Regiment makes for the base of Mount Suribachi there on the southern tip of Iwo Jima. A member of the 28th Marines, Corporal Tony Stein, lays down covering fire for his unit with a personally modified .30 caliber Browning machine gun he takes off a downed fighter plane in a previous campaign. He calls it the Stinger. With the Stinger in hand, he charges enemy pillboxes, emptying them of enemy soldiers one by one in hand-to-hand combat. According to his citation, he throws off his helmet and kicks off his boots for better mobility and exposes himself to enemy fire as he carries a wounded man back to the beach and retrieves ammunition for his unit. Not once, not twice, but 8 times. Later in the day, his weapon is shot out of his hands twice as he covers the withdrawal of his platoon to the company position. For his unwavering devotion to duty in the face of terrific odds and his outstanding valor throughout the bitter hours of conflict, Corporal Tony Stein is awarded the Medal of Honor. He's wounded and evacuated to a hospital ship, and when he hears of the heavy casualties his unit is taking, he returns to combat and is killed in action on March 1st, 1945. Elsewhere on Iwo Jima on this day, Sergeant Darrell S. Cole, a member of the 23rd Marines, leads his men through tremendous mortar and artillery fire toward Airfield No. 1, 1,000 yards inland from the beachhead. They take out enemy emplacements until they're pinned down. According to his citation, Sergeant Cole takes a pistol and a grenade and advances alone on a Japanese pillbox. He hurls the grenade, fires on the enemy, and then returns to pick up more grenades before going back again and again until the enemy position is destroyed. As he returns to his squad, he's killed by an enemy grenade. But his actions enable his company to advance and secure the objective. For his stout-hearted leadership in the face of almost certain death on this day in 1945, Sergeant Darrell S. Cole is awarded the Medal of Honor. In 1995, an Aegis-equipped destroyer is launched and christened the USS Cole in his honor. By the end of this day in 1945, 30,000 Marines have landed on Iwo Jima. They've begun to take Airfield No. 1 and have achieved their objectives of isolating Mount Suribachi and seizing the quarry, a Japanese strongpoint halfway up the eastern coast of the island. The battle for Iwo Jima that begins on this day in 1945 will rage on for another 35 days, until the few remaining Japanese soldiers surrender on March 26th. More than 18,000 Japanese will die in combat or by ritual suicide. Some will continue to hide out in the tunnels, 2 of whom will remain hidden for another 4 years until 1949. In all, 6,800 Americans lose their lives taking the barren wasteland of Iwo Jima, securing the final foothold necessary for the invasion of Okinawa, which is the beginning of the end of the war in the Pacific. There are 316 days left in the year.